Your body is carrying a message written 200 years ago. Chemical markers attached to your genes right now, controlling how you process food, how you handle stress, how your blood vessels respond to pressure, were placed there by starvation your ancestors endured before the Civil War. Black Americans are 60% more likely to develop diabetes. We have the highest hypertension rates in the world. We die 3 to 4 years younger. And doctors will look you in the eye and call it genetics. They're lying. Scientists discovered the truth by studying famine survivors in Europe. 6 months of extreme starvation created permanent changes in DNA that lasted over 60 years. Chemical tags attached to genes controlling metabolism. The survivors' bodies remembered the famine. Decades later, storing fat like starvation was always coming. Higher rates of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, all from 6 months of hunger that ended when food returned. But for enslaved Africans, the hunger never ended. For 250 years, through 10 generations of pregnant women surviving on maggot-infested pork and cornmeal while building babies from nothing. Every meal was calculated to keep bodies alive, but weak. Just enough calories to prevent immediate death, not enough to build strong bones or sharp minds. And every single one of those meals was writing instructions into DNA that would affect children not yet born. The system has spent billions making sure you never connect these dots. They'll tell you it's your diet choices, your culture, your genetics. But here's what they won't tell you. The slave diet was biological warfare aimed at your great-great-great-grandmother's womb, and it's still killing us. The evidence is undeniable. Babies born to African immigrant women weigh significantly more than babies born to Black American women. Same genetics, same ancestry, different outcomes. That gap, that's not nature. That's 250 years of forced starvation leaving molecular scars that medicine is only now beginning to understand. And once you see how deep this conspiracy goes, you'll never look at your health the same way again. The Plantation Commissary. Every Saturday morning, the ritual repeated on plantations across the South. Enslaved adults lined up to receive their weekly ration, 3.5 pounds of salt pork and 1 peck of cornmeal. The pork came from the cheapest cuts, fatty, often spoiled, sometimes still moving with parasites. Calculate the calories, roughly 1,200 per day for people swinging axes 14 hours in southern heat, building the mansions that still stand today. On cotton plantations, the rations were even worse. Enslaved people got their pork and cornmeal, plus a pint of molasses every 2 weeks if the overseer felt generous. Formerly enslaved people who escaped described the food as coarse cornmeal boiled with meat too tainted for white consumption. Archaeologists excavating slave quarters found animal bones in the trash heaps, mostly possum, raccoon, turtle. The enslaved were hunting at night after 16-hour workdays just to supplement starvation rations. Pregnant women got nothing extra. Women forced to work in the fields until labor started, surviving on the same cornmeal and rancid pork while growing babies. Medical records show enslaved infants were born weighing 20 to 30% less than white infants. Plantation owners noted this in their ledgers. Low birth weight meant lower resale value, but feeding pregnant women properly would cut into profits. The malnutrition wasn't incompetence. Enslavers had access to fresh vegetables, dairy, quality meat. They made a calculated decision: feed enslaved people just enough to prevent immediate death. For 250 years, every meal was a slow-acting poison. But the damage went deeper than anyone could have imagined, and it didn't stop when the chains came off. Before we dive deeper into how the slave diet rewired Black DNA, if you believe these hidden histories deserve to be uncovered, subscribe to Black Stories Untold and help us reveal the truths that have been erased for centuries. Now, let's continue the story. When the body breaks, the first sign appears in the mouth. Gums start bleeding for no reason. Teeth loosen. Wounds refuse to heal. Plantation medical records describe enslaved people with spongy gums and putrid ulcers. Textbooks scurvy from months without fresh fruit or vegetables. Doctors documented this and blamed it on natural Negro constitution. They were lying. Vitamin A deficiency causes night blindness. Combined with protein deficiency, it triggers kwashiorkor. The belly swells with fluid while muscles waste away. The calcium deficiency was especially brutal. Without dairy, and with dark skin producing less vitamin D in northern climates, enslaved people developed weak, porous bones that fractured easily. Add the fatty pork that blocks calcium absorption, and you get skeletal systems that couldn't support the labor being demanded. Iron deficiency caused anemia so severe that people described feeling like they were moving through water. Exhaustion, brain fog, hearts working overtime just to pump oxygen-poor blood through the body. But starvation does something beyond vitamin deficiencies, something that doesn't show up in medical records. When your body enters famine mode, your metabolism reprograms itself at the cellular level. Blood pressure rises. Inflammation spreads through organs like a slow fire. The body hoards salt and water. Fat gets stored aggressively, preparing for the next famine that survival instincts know is always coming. This metabolic reprogramming happened in every enslaved body, every single day for multiple generations. The chronic stress flooded bodies with cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones that in short bursts help you survive, but in constant doses destroy you from the inside. The famine that never ended. The Western Netherlands during the final months of World War II. The occupying military cut off all food shipments as punishment. For 6 months, 4 million people survived on 400 to 1,000 calories per day, about 1/3 of what a body needs. Tulip bulbs became food. People ate sugar beets meant for cattle. Over 22,000 citizens starved to death. Thousands of women were pregnant during the famine. They gave birth to underweight babies. The babies survived, grew up, had families. Everyone assumed the trauma ended when food returned. Decades later, researchers tracked down 2,400 people who had been in the womb during the famine. The scientists took blood samples and examined their DNA against their siblings who hadn't been exposed. The results rewrote everything we thought we knew about inheritance. The famine babies had chemical markers, methyl groups, attached to specific genes that their siblings didn't have. These markers had been there for 60 years. The gene that controls growth and metabolism showed dramatically different methylation. So did genes regulating stress hormones and inflammation. The famine babies had higher rates of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and schizophrenia than their own siblings. 6 months of starvation was still affecting their health 6 decades later. The researchers called it epigenetic inheritance. DNA is your genetic code, the permanent sequence that doesn't change. Epigenetics is the chemical tags that attach to that code, telling certain genes to turn on or off. Extreme environmental stress can place these tags. Unlike genetic mutations, epigenetic changes happen fast and get passed down through generations. The evidence in black bodies. Researchers examined birth weight data across 1.8 million births in the United States. Black babies born to American-born black mothers weighed 250 grams less than white babies, even after controlling for income, education, prenatal care, and maternal health. Then they examined babies born to African immigrant women from Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana. First-generation immigrants with the same genetic ancestry as black Americans. Those babies weighed the same as white babies, sometimes more. Within 1 or 2 generations in America, birth weights dropped. Being black in America was affecting pregnancy outcomes at a biological level. The medical establishment buried it. Black Americans have the highest hypertension rates in the world, 42% compared to 28% for white Americans, and 23% for Africans in Africa. We develop diabetes at 60% higher rates and die from it twice as often. Heart disease hits us earlier. Life expectancy remains 3 to 4 years shorter. The thrifty phenotype hypothesis explains it. Bodies that experienced generational starvation evolved to store every calorie, expecting the next famine. Great for survival during slavery, lethal when food becomes available. The attack continues. Epigenetic changes can fade if environmental stressors stop. The European famine babies pass some methylation markers to their children, But by the third generation, many had reverted. The country rebuilt. Food security returned. The biological memory gradually weakened. For Black Americans, the stressors never stopped, and researchers discovered the damage was still being written into DNA in real time. Scientists studying accelerated biological aging gave it a name: weathering, the premature breakdown of Black bodies from chronic racism. They measured allostatic load, a composite of stress biomarkers. Black women in their 20s showed scores equivalent to white women in their 40s. By their 50s, Black women had cellular aging markers 7.5 years ahead. Other studies found Black Americans experiencing discrimination had significantly higher C-reactive protein, a marker of chronic inflammation linked to heart disease and early death. The discrimination was measurably changing biology at the molecular level. Researchers examined telomeres, protective caps on chromosomes that shorten as cells age. Black Americans had shorter telomeres than white Americans of the same age. Living in poverty, experiencing police violence, facing employment discrimination, all accelerate cellular aging. The body interprets systemic racism as a constant physical threat. Rewriting the code. The same studies that proved epigenetic inheritance also prove something the system doesn't want you to know. The changes can be reversed. Follow-up research showed that famine survivors who improved their nutrition and reduced stress showed partial reversal of methylation patterns. The epigenetic tags weakened. Gene activity shifted back toward normal. The body could remember healing just as it remembered trauma. Researchers took children from high-stress environments and placed them in nurturing foster care. Within 3 years, their stress-responsive genes showed measurably different methylation patterns. The biological damage began to heal. Exercise changes methylation on genes controlling inflammation. Months of regular physical activity altered expression of thousands of genes related to immune function. Meditation and therapy reduce cortisol and change methylation on stress response genes. Proper sleep allows DNA repair. Good nutrition in the first 1,000 days from conception to age 2 can prevent trauma transmission to the next generation. Black doulas and midwives are saving lives by reducing stress during pregnancy. When Black women have culturally competent prenatal care, birth weights increase and maternal mortality drops. Community gardens provide fresh vegetables that change metabolism. Therapy programs give people tools to break stress cycles. Breaking the cycle. The processed food industry doesn't just sell meals. It trades in generational trauma. In Black neighborhoods, fast food chains follow a centuries-old blueprint: give just enough to survive and take everything else in profit. High fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, salt piled like a hidden tax on the body. The modern cornmeal and spoiled pork, redesigned for the 21st century. West African diets once built strength: vegetables, legumes, whole grains. Soul food preserved that legacy, but corporations twisted it, adding sugar and processed meats while whispering authenticity. What was nourishing became a tool. What was culture became consumption. Trauma lives in the body. Panic attacks, sudden spikes in blood pressure. These are echoes of epigenetic memory, patterns written by ancestors suffering. Trauma-informed therapy shines a light on the invisible wiring, interrupting the signals that keep the body trapped in inherited fear. The stakes are highest before birth. Black maternal mortality is 3 times higher than white, even for wealthy, educated women. World-class athletes have nearly died in childbirth because doctors refuse to see them. Doulas and culturally competent care aren't luxuries, they are survival. The inheritance. After uncovering how the slave diet reshaped generations of Black bodies, we arrive at the undeniable truth of survival, trauma, and resilience written into our very genes. We are the descendants of people who survived biological warfare. The slave diet attacked DNA across 10 generations. European researchers proved 6 months of famine leaves epigenetic scars for 60 years. American slavery was 250 years. The damage should have destroyed us completely, but we're still here. The medical establishment prescribes medication while ignoring root causes. They did the same during the experiments on black bodies, watched us deteriorate for decades under the guise of research. That continuous strategy used black bodies for profit while denying us knowledge to heal. We covered those experiments in another video. The parallels to nutritional warfare prove the conspiracy never ended. Understanding epigenetics gives us biological proof for health disparities the system blamed on our culture and choices. The science confirms what our grandmothers knew. The trauma runs deep. So does the strength. The same bodies that survived impossible odds carried forward something stronger than any epigenetic damage. Your body carries the memory of struggle and the blueprint for liberation. The choice to heal is collective and revolutionary. They tried to break us at the molecular level. We're still standing. Take care of yourself. Your health is resistant. Your healing is reparations you give yourself while we fight for what's owed. Your ancestors survived for you to be here. Honor them by thriving. The story doesn't end here. Keep watching our next video to uncover what comes next and the hidden truths that history tried to bury.